Are we all
Okay,
set?
and you are live on YouTube.
All right. Well, thank you everybody for joining us. This is the Orleans Veterans Day Memorial Day Committee meeting. It's March 16th, 4:30 p.m. I would like to call the meeting to order. And as we get rolling, I'd just like to acknowledge a few folks that may or may not be in the wings. Keith Arnold, who's a potential new member. Hopefully he'll be listening in or watching. Ron Collins, I invited, but he was unsure whether he was going to be able to make it. He's the town of Orleans. I have Russ from GHD. Also in the wings, hopefully, is Rob Mador, which he's part of the Bridges for the Fallen. Sue Christie, who is part of the CPC. She was a point of contact with our point of contact with the CPC in regards to requests for donation, and Michael Hicks, also from the CPC. Hopefully Dave Hawk from Hawk Designs is out there. Obviously Brian's here, and Bev from the newly formed 501c3. So sticking with the agenda, I'd like to have public comment if there's any public comment out there.
No public comment.
Oh, okay. Moving on to agenda item number 2. At the February 17th meeting for the Board of Selectmen, there was a young lady who presented to the board a request for a dedication. In essence, it is the Finch family. They were representing, or they were speaking on behalf of Seaman Norman Wood Finch, who was on the USS Tampa, United States Coast Guard cutter. And in essence, and I'll paraphrase, she requested from the Board of Selectmen if they would entertain the bridge, the naming of the bridge, which is down on Route 28, going toward Chatham, right at the landing, and at Pleasant Bay. And there's a small bridge there. It's owned by the state, and through the assistance of Rob Mador, which is part of the Bridges for the Fallen, the request was to possibly name the bridge on behalf or in behalf of their great uncle who lost his life. And in essence, just to speak quickly about it, on September 26, 1918, the United States Coast Guard cutter Tampa was sunk by U-boat 91, a single torpedo, and all lives were lost on board. There were 111 Coast Guard seamen, 4 Navy personnel, 11 British Navy, and 5 civilians. All lives were lost during that tragic event. And that was in the Bristol Channel, again, during World War I. And the request by the family is to name the bridge in the honor of their great uncle. I've spoken to Rob Mador a little bit about it, and he's been part of the effort to name several bridges all over the country in regards to military personnel that have lost their lives, and other personnel as well. One of the interesting points that Rob brought out was that, to his knowledge, and I've done a little research as well, the Coast Guard does not have any bridges named after any Coast Guard personnel that were lost during any of the wars or any of the conflicts. And the hope is that if the bridge is named in the honor of their great uncle, the Coast Guard is very much, according to Rob, the Coast Guard is very interested because they don't have any Coast Guard memorials for any fallen Coast Guard seamen. And so they're very anxious, I won't say anxious, they're very interested in the potential of naming the bridge. I explained to Rob, obviously our committee is a rather small committee, and it would be more along the lines that the select board would be the final word as to whether or not it goes forward. But whereas we don't have a quorum for an actual vote or anything like that, I would ask my one active member, John Fuller, if he would be interested in at least that I can at least let the Board of Selectmen know that we are in support of the naming of the bridge itself. Now, under full disclosure, and again, I would not be doing justice if I wasn't following through. I just want to make sure there aren't any Orleans veterans that would fall under that category. That, you know, I don't want 10 years down the road for somebody to say, why was a Brewster resident named for a bridge in Orleans? You know, the circumstances are not quite as black and white. I mean, we have the Finch family is very well known to the town of Orleans. Jean Finch was huge in the skateboard park. She was part of the juice bar. The Finch family is, you know, I don't really have to say too much about it. They're definitely part of the fabric of the town of Orleans. But I wouldn't be doing my due diligence if I wasn't asking the question. So while I am fully in support of it, I just want to make sure in talking to John, and or if anybody in attendance has anything that they would like to say one way or another going forward, you know, now's the time. So.
Well, I fully support it.
I do as well. I mean, obviously, I think that, you know, it's a noble cause. I think it's very fitting. Ms. Finch, when she presented to the Board of Selectmen, she outlined very articulately that it's a great location. It's on the water. It's looking out at the ocean. You know, you have a family member that's close with the town of Orleans. And on top of everything else, the Coast Guard doesn't have any other memorial that's named in regards to a fallen seaman, let alone an entire ship. And in my research, the only place I've seen any of the members that were acknowledged or identified is at Arlington Cemetery. And it is at the, the U.S. Coast Guard Memorial at Arlington National. And what's interesting is the actual ship itself. I don't know this, but and I haven't been able to find out, although it's easy enough to look it up. The actual march by the Coast Guard, Semper Paratus, mentions the USS Tampa within its march, which I think is rather interesting. Several ships, I should say, have been named in honor of the Tampa. And several of the members of the ship have had ships named after them. But in regards to a memorial itself, this would be a first. So I certainly am for it. John, I take it, you know, you obviously are.
Mm-hmm.
You know, again, this isn't a situation where we can take a vote because we don't have a quorum. But I certainly would pen a letter to the Board of Selectmen saying that our committee is fully in support of it. So.
Yeah, Kevin, that's why I asked to have it sent to you guys, is just to make sure there is no one from Orleans that might be deserving of it. And of course, between you, John, and myself, we've been here a long time, and I would think we would have known of something like that, but I'm not aware of anybody. And the Finch family, as you say, is well known in this town, and I think it's fitting.
Mm-hmm.
No, I do too. And going back, we do have several, I always joke about this, we have several squares in town, which are actually rectangles or triangles, that are named after fallen members of Orleans militia. So it's not like we're overlooking anybody in Orleans that gave their life that hasn't already had some form of a memorial in place. And again, that's something that I'm hoping that we can kind of build up a little bit as we go forward. Those triangles need to be tweaked, but I don't want to get ahead of it. But so I will certainly send an email or a letter to the board saying that our committee is fully in support of it. Again, I know Rob is probably listening, but he and I spoke at length about potential, you know, if they do a bridge dedication, who's going to be involved. It probably state representatives will be there, Sarah Peak. and then some other dignitaries, as well as the potential for a large turnout for Coast Guard personnel. In which case, I would have a chat with Chief McDonald in regards to going forward, whether or not we would be able to divert traffic down 28, put them onto Crossroad, back over to 39, and then onto Tark Hill, to kind of allow the bridge dedication to occur. But again, I don't want to put the cart before the horse, but I think looking forward, just kind of keep everything in perspective. So that pretty much takes care of that. Unless anybody has any other questions about the potential future bridge dedication.
Well, Kevin, we have two other bridges that could potentially be named for an Orleans service person.
True,
And
and I think
more prominent than this one, but I don't see any problems with it at all.
I think the interesting aspect of it is that it is, it's on the water. It's one of the few bridges, state-owned bridges, that go over a body of water that's actually adjacent to a bay, which is adjacent to the Atlantic. Several of the bridges, they do span waterways, but not one that has a vista such as that. So I think it lends itself well to that cause. So he's definitely in support of it. Okay, moving on to agenda item number 3, the CPC allocation. I don't know if any of you have watched or seen the CPC presentation. As a little bit of a background, on January 28th, I did a presentation to the CPC, and in essence, just basically brought forward our desire as a committee to bring Veterans Memorial Park, give it a little bit of a gussying up, so to speak. It's fallen in disrepair, and it needs to be upgraded. And unfortunately, the upgrades are going to probably be quite cost, I won't say prohibitive, but it's not an easy fix. I think when you peel back the layers, there's a lot of issues that need to be addressed, and that's what I kind of presented to the CPC, and the hope for the future going forward as to what the Veterans Memorial Park could represent. On March 4th, they had a public hearing and it passed. And to my knowledge, I don't have the exact number, but it is in excess of $27,000 was earmarked for the Veterans Memorial Park. Now, as I understand it, we still have a $10,000 from years past that's been earmarked for it as well. So we have close to $40,000 to kind of get the project up and rolling. And so with that in mind, I'm not really looking, obviously we can't have any kind of a meeting or any kind of a vote or anything, but at this point in time, I would like to start setting meetings with the Veterans Memorial Park on a monthly basis, so we can keep things fresh, so we can keep in the loop. We're not losing anybody. We're not missing anything along the line. And I'm looking for anybody to, and again, I'm just completely keeping this wide open, looking for any kind of dates going forward. Like, what I would like to do is have the meeting set up for, like, and I'm just going to pick a date and a day, like every third Tuesday of the month or every fourth Thursday of the month, something along those lines, so we can always, instead of trying to keep track of the actual dates that the meetings are set at, we always know that the third Tuesday of every month, we're going to have a Veterans and Memorial Day Committee meeting, and in regards to Veterans Memorial Park and the progress that we hopefully will be getting to. So, John, how do you feel about that?
I think it's essential, but I think you need to check your days. That's the same day planning board meets. So what time of day do you plan on having this?
Well, again, I'll kind of keep it wide open. Why don't I give a call to Kelly, and I'll check with Sarah as well, because she's got all the dates. I can pick a day of the month, and we'll just kind of keep it at that location, and I'll set it up through the town that again, I'm just arbitrarily picking a date. Every third Thursday of the month, we always have a Veterans Memorial Day meeting. And is 4:30 in the afternoon okay? Would it be better later, or how's it work for you, John?
It's okay with me, but in the past, we had them in the morning.
Okay. Well, and the idea was we were trying to figure out what was convenient for everybody. If somebody was working, it was difficult to go to a morning meeting. So, they were unable to make them. So let me check with Kelly, and then I'll send an email out and see if some dates work, and then we'll move forward from there. The other thing I would like to mention at this point, and obviously we've had some great success and no uncertain terms, thanks to the CPC for giving it a kick in the pants to get going. I want to make sure, and again, I know that we have a lot of people involved. I know Brian's here, Russ is here, and there's a lot of people in attendance. Hopefully Sue Christie and Dave Hawk. There's been a lot of emails that have been going around in regards to potential for the park. Oh, we can do this, or we can do that. I think those are all great. Anything and everything is on the table. But I think we need to take a step back and remind ourselves that this is Veterans Memorial Park. And while we can have reflection benches and things like that, I think trying to reach outside the box, so to speak, and having a public sitting area, or a spot where groups can meet from different organizations and host. I think we got to remain focused and keep it Veterans Memorial Park. And again, a lot of the functions and such that I've mentioned through several of the presentations are geared toward the veterans, such as the Battle of 1814. I know Bev is in the background there listening. So the Battle of 1814, where the British Marines came down Main Street and the Orleans militia drove them back. That happened right there at that intersection. That's a veteran-related event that I think needs to be acknowledged and shouldn't be lost. The German Nazis invading invading Paris. We were first made aware of that through the transatlantic cable that comes up and runs parallel to Veterans Memorial Park. Things like that, I think that we can acknowledge and go back and look at them for their historical value. I think those are absolutely on par. And again, we can kind of expand a little bit beyond that. But I want to, as I was talking with Russ earlier, let's get the foundation in place. Let's look at the problems that the park has got. We've got irrigation problems, we've got electrical problems. We'd like to have a pathway that goes through. One of the things that we don't want to do is we don't want to disturb any of the existing flora and fauna. The trees that are already established, we don't want to harm them. So we've got to work around them and establish the walkway. And then we can start looking at the memorials. We've got to get the World War I memorial squared away. Whether or not it's serviceable, I went and checked on it the other day, and more pieces are flaking off of it. The World War II monument seems to be doing okay, but it's just kind of getting a little bit in disrepair. And then the Korean and the Vietnam War memorial, they need to be separated. And again, once they're separated and we can establish those locations, that can be done within the pathway that's already established. So again, kind of getting back to, getting the framework in place, getting the foundation in place. Let's get the pathway, let's get the irrigation, let's get the electrical squared away. And then almost like a phase. Phase one is, this, phase two is this. Yes, John.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely correct in saying we don't want to look at potential uses till we get our approved design and get our design approved by the Board of Select Board. And once we get there and begin construction, then we can start talking about what kind of uses we're going to have.
Right.
You know, we've got people talking to us with uses that have nothing to do with veterans.
Right. And
And
again,
Veterans Memorial Park, and that should come first, in my opinion.
yep, I absolutely agree. And that really kind of boiling it down and getting back to where we started, that was the original desire, was to have an enhanced veterans park. And I don't want to deviate that from that too much. While it's okay to possibly entertain these things, these can be things that the committee can decide down the road whether we want to have part of our park or not. But again, I think that, you know, making sure that we stay true to our core and that we enhance the park and bring it back to its glory, and honor the veterans, the Orleans veterans. And then down the road, you know, we talked about the pathway that goes through and having laser etched bricks on the outside of the walkway itself. Those are all great things, but, you know, let's get the walkway in place first, with the idea that we can expand upon it at that point. And then hopefully any donations that we can get, we can move forward with any future plans and changes or modifications or additions, or, you know, whatever the case may be down the road. But, you know, again, I don't want to beat a dead horse, but I think that, you know, we got to stay true to our form. And this is Veterans Memorial Park, and we're going to we want to address those issues first. So.
Agreed.
One of the things that I'm going to do, and I've already marked it in here, I've got to have Ron Collins be part of our conversation at some point in time. I know that, you know, the $27,000 that was allocated by the CPC, that has to go before town meeting to make sure that, you know, everything is there. Once that's in place, I think then we can start making plans. And again, you know, having someone like Russ part of the program, because he's done a lot of this stuff with the town. Dave Hawk with his design, you know, that's a preliminary design. That wasn't necessarily set in stone, so to speak, but it was a starting point. Now, if the park ends up looking exactly like that, it won't break my heart. I love the way it looks, but maybe it's, you know, during the design phase, we can make modifications. Sarah, is it possible to pull that up just so everybody can see what I'm referring to? I know everybody has seen the preliminary drawings, but this way everybody can kind of take a peek at it. And, you know, as it was originally designed, the pathway itself would kind of, and I hate using the word meander, but it would kind of, instead of falling on hard lines, it just kind of goes around the existing foliage that's already there. And you know, hopefully we can, getting back to original, what I was saying was, you know, getting the foundation in place, so to speak, and then perhaps we can, you know, do the brick surrounds and, you know, a lot of that stuff, which can come down the road. But this, I know everyone here has seen this drawing. This is for anybody that's in attendance that's looking from the outside. I think Keith Arnold is out there watching. So I don't know if you saw this drawing, Keith, or not, but here it is. So this was designed by Dave Hawk, Hawk Designs. And if Dave's out there, I want to thank him. So thank you, Sarah. The other thing I'd like to mention real quick, and this really kind of covers a couple of different things, both the bridge dedication, the CPC allocation, and the Memorial Day services, which is the next item on the agenda. I want to make sure that I acknowledge, well, Billy Giroux, who's part of the American Legion Post 308, the American Legion Post very much wants to be part of any of the discussions going forward. We can probably, you know, obviously have them come in on some of the discussions. And again, Bill and his assistant, Don McKenzie, have been diligent, very diligent to get the flags out there for all our Memorial Day and Veterans Day services. And they will continue to do so. Don kind of likes to stay in the shadows. He isn't really one of those guys that's right up front, but he is very much for continuing to do what he does and putting the flags out for the American Legion post. And again, going forward with our Veterans Memorial Park, we want to make sure that the American Legion doesn't feel left out, so to speak, in regards to any kind of designs that are going forward. I know that their roll calls, so to speak, or their roles have kind of gone down a little bit because of natural attrition, but we definitely want to have them part of the equation going forward. So yeah, that's so I think the next step is to get Ron Collins kind of in the loop, so to speak, so he can tell us. I for one, I've never done anything like this before. You know, Ron will hopefully be able to tell us what direction to go in, what the next steps are, and we can get things rolling. I know that he wants to be part of the electrical update, electricity there, and the irrigation system, which has fallen in disrepair over the years, as I mentioned at the beginning. So moving on to item number 4, Memorial Day services. I have not gotten an email back from John Kelly as to whether or not we are going to be able to have any kind of a service at the Veterans Memorial Park this year. As of right now, we don't fall under the auspices of opening things up to the public. Things are loosening up a little bit, but not to the point where we can have a function where we're going to invite people, the public, there. But who knows? Something may open up. So I propose, John, that we at least start preparing for at least a virtual Memorial Day service. And it certainly could change to an actual service, but we'll just have to keep watch on what the governor is saying in regards to groups of people that gather.
Yeah, I agree, Kevin. But one thing you can do is you can videotape stuff ahead of time.
Yeah.
And then people can tune into that, and you can loop it if you want, or have one particular time. And people can participate that way if, in fact, we're not loose enough to have a small gathering on the park.
I agree. And as I've got Cecil here now, and I know Brian's seen it. I don't know if Russell saw it. Did you all saw the Veterans Day service that we did virtual? I mean, was that okay?
Yeah, I thought it was fine.
Okay.
I thought so.
Yep.
Okay. I don't know. Did you see that, Russ?
I did.
Okay. How
I
did
did,
it
thought it was
look
great.
from? Okay, that's what I was
That's
kind of
fantastic.
wondering how it was received, so to speak. Sarah was. I can't say how thankful I am, Sarah, for everything you did for that Veterans Day virtual meeting that we had, or that service that we did. But we had a drone out there. She unbelievable. She put the music in, she tied everything together, and this is on top of the 500 other things that she has to do in her day. So once again, Sarah, thank you for all your help on that Veterans Day, and you may be getting a phone call from me pretty soon in regards to Memorial Day. So I'm going to go forward and just start looking at preparing Memorial Day services similar to what we did for Veterans Day, and just start creating a video that, like John said, is kind of in a loop that will kind of play out all day long. And, you know, hopefully I can get people that can perhaps speak. We can do a recording. Maybe Cecil would like to do a little speech. Maybe Russ would like to do a speech.
Sure. This
Marine Corps. I got 2 here. Marine Corps.
Semper Fi.
Yeah, there we go. And of course, I don't want to leave Keith out of it. I know he's listening.
Keith
So
on board. Yeah, maybe we could sing.
that would be something.
If there's anybody that's been misbehaving, I can make them do some push-ups.
Sounds good to me. So yeah, I will stay tuned. I'll send out some emails in regards to some ideas and such, and we'll go forward. Is there anything else you'd like to talk about, even though we can't vote on anything, John, in regards to Memorial Day services coming up?
Well, I can add that I can do the POW table and that could be put on a videotape and looped.
Yeah,
And I see no problem with that at all. And I really think that we'll be able to have a small gathering there by end of,
I'm kind of hoping we can have a gathering there. My biggest fear is when you put something like that out after so much time with everyone being in lockdown, that the first time we put anything out that there's a gathering, we'll end up with 700 people there. And next thing you know, the town of Orleans is on the front page of the Cape Cod Times for violating the COVID-19 restrictions. And John Kelly won't be happy with me.
well, let's see how it develops.
Yeah, that's why I said I'm just going to kind of keep an eye on what the governor's orders are and see if anything has been loosened up. I mean, obviously, if we can do a recording of you doing the POW table at the memorial spot, that would be awesome. But again, I have a life-size picture of you standing there in your whites doing your POW table, and people are going to pull over and stop and come out and watch. So, which is great. But you know, we have to be careful about what attention we're going to draw to ourselves.
It would be good to get it on videotape because I don't know how many more years I'm going to get into the whites and the blues.
I hear you.
They keep shrinking in the closet.
Yeah, that polyester, I don't know. It's definitely something that. All right. So unless there's anything more in regards to the Memorial Day services, I'll continue to move forward with that. And I may reach out to several people and see if maybe they could, have some words, and, it won't be just me talking head. We can have some other folks involved. New members, item number 5. I know Keith is going to be a member. So he will be nice. We'll be up to a quorum if all 3 of us are here. But again, I'd like to put it out there to everyone that's listening. If anybody would like to be part of the Memorial Day Veterans Day Committee, I mean, obviously we have some really great stuff coming. Veterans Memorial Park, the modifications, it would be absolutely huge if we could get a larger membership so we don't have to rely on just 3 people for the committee.
Right. We might talk to Paul Kelly. We need another Marine. And Jeff Smith was the Master Chief Petty Officer of the Coast Guard Reserve.
Yeah.
An Orleans resident.
Yep, he would be great.
He's very well spoken, and he's not here all the time, but might be somebody to talk to.
I'm thrilled that I finally got Keith to join. It got to the point the last 5 years, every time the function ended, he would avoid me. I would practically tackle him at the function to try to get him to join. So finally,
he might have an ulterior motive anyway.
Well, I think going forward, I mean, again, I don't want to, beat it to death, but I think Veterans Memorial Park, any of the modifications we do now are in place for generations, and I think it's huge. Cecil.
Yeah, speaking of memorials, what were you doing at the monument at Monument Road? It looks like you guys must have.
Well, you're very intuitive. Saw us out there checking him out. We were out checking Abe out the other day, but that's actually one of the things that's coming up on the next item under new business. I was going to bring it up and kind of lump that in. But yeah, if anybody, just to finish up on item number 5, if anybody knows anybody that would be interested, please have them reach out to Town Hall, to the Selectman's office, and fill out an interest form, and then they'll get a date to appear before the Board of Selectmen for an interview, and hopefully we can get some more folks in there. Keith, are you out there?
Yes, I am.
There he is. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for being part of our committee.
Oh, I've been looking forward to it. Thank you.
I don't think you've gotten the final blessing from the board, but we'll just assume that you've got it.
No, it was interesting listening to all about the money for the sewer project.
Yeah. Yeah. paint drying was probably more fun than that, but in any event.
What, Keith?
So, all right, so now on to new business. Two items. I'm going to get to the monument in a second, Cecil, but two things. I'd like to introduce Brian Sosner, who everyone is aware of, but Brian has been instrumental in getting the 501c3 up and running. The 501c3 is going to be instrumental in the progress for the Veterans Memorial Park for a lot of the great changes and modifications that are on the horizon. So again, we don't technically have a meeting because we don't have a quorum, but Brian, if you'd like to speak a little bit as to how you've been doing with setting everything up.
Sure, thank you. And hopefully I won't, my computer won't freeze on you, but thanks. Well, yeah, thanks for the opportunity. So just to update you on setting up the 501c3, short of, I think we've got the makings of an initial board so we can complete our paperwork, which was set up for us. So we're using the, local CPA to do it. I think a lot of you are familiar with George Malloy. He does work for me, for the Fullers, for I think probably everyone. So George was simply waiting for us to give him just some initial board members. I think we have that to start, only he's caught up in a little bit with tax season right now. So the objective would be to finalize everything over the next couple of weeks. I'm sure he'll figure out how to file it for us, but we have an address. As soon as he does that, we can open a bank account and then set up, the software for the donation pages. So I've got some leads and some advice on how to get that done, which I don't think is that difficult, but we'll make sure that everything is secure and set up. But in any event, so the assumption will be that within the next couple of weeks, we'll have everything set up. And I really wanted to make sure it got done, certainly ahead of Memorial Day. So I'm also looking to bring in a couple other folks. I think I've got some pretty good leads from the business community, a couple of vets outreach groups, and I'll refer anyone to you as well.
No, that's great.
No doubt. So I'm trying to kind of broaden that out, whether it's for folks who are clearly involved in whether it's from the business side, certainly from the vet side, or from the real estate side. There's just to kind of round it out, which would be great. So Dave, and I'm in touch with Dave. I just wanted to add, I did, because I work on a couple of other projects in town with Ron. There were a couple of questions I asked him about the park coming up and the things that he had said, knowing that this was coming to the CPC for approval for the grant. So just to kind of update a couple of things that you had mentioned, Ron had said to me that he said you could use the time, now or in the ensuing weeks. He said it would be, a great idea, because if there's tweaks you want to make to the plan. So I had chatted with him about parking, handicap, the ingress, egress, the paths. He said anything that you want to do would be opportune to sit down and pull that together. So I'm assuming that can really be a joint effort, whether it's a fundraising point or even just the way the plan looks and evolves, whether it's for use, for education, for all the things that you want to do, when keeping obviously with the mission of the park. But he just said it's a good time to, if you want to go through that and tweak it for when the bids go out or his RFQ later. I'm assuming that'll happen sometime after May, presumably after CPC approves everything. But for me, it's a marketing opportunity from a 501c3 standpoint to kind of get out ahead of that too, to have, not just show people what we're going to do, but it just makes for hopefully some nice opportunities. So he just said it's okay to, look at the plan. So if you're looking to set up a meeting, whether it's physically on the site or we do, I know there's some comments I had earlier. Dave had a couple that he had made to me in looking at it again. Ron had a couple. So I just want to be able to find the time the right way to talk about that as we proceed.
Yeah, absolutely. Russ?
Yeah, and I caught it just building off that, talking about the design. I think the concept put together by Mr. Hawk looks fantastic. I do also have some suggestions or really more considerations, as this is a highly aesthetic project. But anytime you're dealing with memorials, you want accessibility and handicap accessibility, especially, to be paramount. We're going to have older seniors on the site. You want to make sure wherever they park that you have crosswalks to get them to the site, And, just one crosswalk. I'm looking at Google Earth now. I have it up. It looks like there's 2 crosswalks. We may want to think about adding a third, just if someone's on a walker or something like that. Nice ramps going in, everything down to the pattern of the brickwork and other. I have a few other suggestions, but maybe like a dedicated meeting to go over some design components.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
It's good and bad. The more people you have, the more input you have, but then you also get 50 different opinions on somebody wants brick, somebody wants bluestone, someone wants this, someone wants that. And it's, but I've done a few of these. I worked on the senior center behind there, that whole back patio. So I have some experience with the landscape architecture, but also having Mr. Hawk on board too. He seems like he's got a good handle on this, but yeah, just to nail down, we don't have to talk about the finite points now, but I do have some considerations.
Good.
No, absolutely.
Yeah.
And go ahead, Brian.
No, I mean, that's great. I would like to, sort that out. It's whether it's between whether it's not just a 501c3 effort, but just an effort for all of us just to contribute to that process. So whether you do it through the committee, the 501c3, that'd be really important to do. There's definitely some, I think that you're right. I mean, I'd love to hear it. And I know there's some tweaks we can make to it.
Well, I know one of the things that had come up in one of the early conversations that I had with Ron Collins was he was very concerned about sidewalk and handicapped access, egress. One of the things that we talked about was actually having a handicap portion of the sidewalk that runs alongside of Veterans Memorial Park, which is actually accessed off of Academy Place, that side road. There's nothing that says, I don't want to sound pompous, the town of Orleans owns that road. It's not the state road, although it probably may fall within the easement, but that's technically our road. So we can, and this is something that was spitballed around earlier on, we can make that entire parking area on Academy Place handicap only for the day. Memorial Day and Veterans Day, nobody park on that section of road unless you have a handicap placard or you need access or if you've got a van. The nice thing about it is that Academy Place, the roadway there is very wide. So there's plenty of room, if somebody's parked there, that we can actually get people by, even if their vehicle, if they've got a van with a ramp. I think there's plenty of room to get people by. So we've got the ability that on those dates, Memorial Day, Veterans Day, parking on Academy Place, handicap veterans only, and, just stick with that. So those are things that I hope we can kind of incorporate going forward. But you're absolutely right, Russ. A lot of things that, I've got an idea, John's got an idea, Cecil's got an idea, but there might be something that we're missing. And so, with Brian on the outside, you giving input, that's going to help us make sure that we're hopefully not missing anything down the road.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Was there anything else, Brian? I'm sorry.
Oh, that's all right. One other thing, I know you had said it was okay to contact him. I mean, just trying to put things together. Because I had questions about the stonework and what was historic and what you could save or move, and some of that affected the paths or the way you walk in. I know I haven't spoken to him yet, but I do have a call into, I think it's Bob, is it Bob Legg over at Brewster Stone, just to call him and reach out and just say, in terms of just trying to get a budget together for what's really, needed to implement. I just thought I'd reach out to him. So not to step on toes, but if it means you want to pull that together somehow, I just I have a call into him. I'll follow up just to get some idea what's involved here.
I did do a construction takeoff based on the concept plan for the costs. So for what it's worth, I pulled some numbers aside. I think it's it's in that $300,000 to $400,000 range for the construction. But yeah, depending on how decorative we get with the stone, with the brickwork, with, depending on what the final options are, that could raise or lower. I would suggest any brickwork that we put a concrete mat underneath so the bricks don't become elevated and uneven, which can be disastrous for, walking surfaces. So that costs a hair more, but it's not much. But I can share that estimate with you, Kevin. I can send it out to you just if you, and that again is based on the concept plan. If that changes,
Right.
Obviously the estimate changes.
Yeah, I think I had seen that number when it came in, and while I expected it was probably going to be high, I think that's when I kind of stopped. And as I mentioned earlier on, you know, I think what we need to do is concentrate on the framework, on the foundation, for lack of a better term, and then whether or not, you know, money-wise, we can afford to do any kind of fancy brickwork or anything like that. I think what's happened in the past, and I'm not throwing anybody under the bus, but I think what's happened in the past was some of those memorials, except for the World War II monument, the World War I monument was constructed at the time with the materials that they had. Unfortunately, it's not standing the test of time. And as is the Korean and the Vietnam Veterans Memorial. I mean, it was made with, from what I could tell from the guy, Mr. Clegg from the stonework place, it looks like it was created with fireplace brick, which, you know, was never designed to last a long time. So I think one thing that's important is anything that we do, let's make sure that if we're going to do it, let's do it right. Let's, you know, I don't want roots coming up through the middle of the walkway at some point in time, or like you said, Russ, let's make sure it's got a good foundation, a good base, and then we'll move from there.
And we can always, as this progresses, for example, if there's, you know, wish list items, decorative benches, things like that, we can either put them out as a bid alternate, you know, that way we see what the prices are, or we can construct the park where we can put things in at a later date and it falls in. We put provisions in the design for add-ons at a later date. So we have a pad, for example, set aside for a seating area. And, you know, if you don't have the $5,000 or $10,000 for the decorative stone seat that you want, then we can build it at a later date and it will look like it belonged there all along. So as long as we just are thoughtful in the design, we can capture over time, I'm sure, all the elements that we want to get in there.
Sure. No, and in talking with a lot of people in town, or a lot of people have come to me and talked about it. I think surprisingly, and I think Brian's going to be finding out in pretty short order, that there's a lot of people out there that want to memorialize a family member or a group of people, and they're willing to spend a considerable amount of money to, like, just getting a bench, a reflection bench. You know, people are just, you know, they're willing to donate that money to memorialize their family member that was, you know, a veteran. So, you know, hopefully that some of these costs, you know, that you had mentioned from the initial cost analysis can be, I don't want to say watered down, but can be offset a little bit by some of the input from the 501c3 and what they gather as well. So, you know, keeping my fingers crossed that, you know, everything comes into place.
Yeah, so we've done that with other towns too, where you have private residents give contributions and you set up a separate account. So during the construction, you know, say there was bricks, for example, you'd build it with the bricks, but then as the donations come in, you can build up that account and supplement the construction budget with that. So have some experience with that.
Yeah, no, that's perfect. And I think that's what we need going forward, is we've got someone that's walked this walk and knows, you know, what to expect, or at least goes into it with eyes wide open. So we're not sitting back going, wow, I didn't expect that. So,
right.
But no, I think that's huge. And again, I'm hoping that, you know, as we move forward, we start getting some experienced folks involved. So, you know, this park is something that can be enjoyed for generations. And there isn't somebody 75 years from now saying, well, I don't know why they built it with this material when it, you know, when it started to fall apart. So we want to make sure it's going to last a while.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah, absolutely.
We may have touched on it, but I guess I need to ask it now. So I do the notion of, you know, designing it so that if you do something in the future, whether it's a bench, a contemplative area, another memorial, that we, you know, factor that in. So I agree with all that. That's really kind of what I was hoping that we'd kind of lead to. I wanted to I just want to make sure that we're okay with this. I don't know if I've ever seen a, you know, the charter or whatever the, you know, official, here's what the park is designed to do or for. So my question is, I know we've brought this up and I'm assuming it's okay, but that when you're contemplating fundraising, you talked about, sure, people would donate for lots of reasons, for a family member, a tribute. So it was more of just making sure that if you're going to do that for a family member, such as myself, who didn't live in Orleans, that if it's not on a stone monument with official Orleans residents, that you can still, you know, donate and tribute to someone, and, you know, whether it's a brick, a path, or an item, or a landscape feature that you can do that.
Yeah, no, and that was one of the things that John and I and Cecil and Keith had talked about pretty much from the get-go, was that right now, I mean, a lot of the monuments there are for Orleans residents that served during any of the conflicts. How do we get the interest from, for lack of a better term, John Q. Public, to have a vested interest in the park itself? Well, we have a lot of retirees that have retired here that have family members that were in the military. So while they can't maybe be on the memorial itself as Orleans residents, they served in some aspect of the wars or one of the conflicts. So again, you may not be in this category, but you could be in this category, and you
Yeah.
can have an etched brick, you know, whether it's a regular paving brick or a 6x6 brick or whatever the case may be. And the nice thing about that is you can have whatever you want on the stone or on the brick. You can have, you know, years of service that they've done, branch of service, conflicts that they were actually in. You know, they were awarded a Purple Heart, which is actually above and beyond what the Orleans residents have. They're just on a memorial. They don't have in there that they had a Purple Heart. Like Cecil, you had a Purple Heart, right, Cecil?
Yes.
You know, you wouldn't know that unless Cecil was talking. So, I mean, that's the thing that I think needs to be conveyed, that while you may not be an Orleans resident, but I get what you're saying, Brian. Where's the instruction, so to speak? You know, where is it written that, you know, if you're here, you can't be here, or you can be here, but not here? You know, maybe
Right.
that's something that I've got to be better about. Maybe we collectively as the Memorial Day committee, we have to put this in writing and identify why we're doing what we're doing and what can be done for the future.
Well, I would say, no, would be a big part of fundraising. I don't want to market something that's not true, or at least it's, whether the select board, or I'm not putting you on the spot or anything, that someone says it's okay to contribute for this purpose. If you don't mind, I'll even go one more, not to take your time. If someone wants to memorialize or make a tribute to a first responder, is that okay too?
Well, I mean, I think that ultimately that's going to be something that the Memorial Day committee will have to answer. That'll have to come up, and whether or not we have, you know, first responder rock. I mean, I know we spoke about that before, but even I caught myself and kind of told myself to pump the brakes and kind of keep focused on Veterans Memorial Park. And perhaps there down the road, we can look at a first responder or, you know, something along those lines. But yeah, I mean, I think we need to memorialize a lot of this information in writing and then have it available. So going forward, somebody like us, we're not sitting here going, well, you know, Paul Fulcher, God rest his soul, we're not really sure what his guidelines were in regards to, I mean, we know that conflicts have a end date, a start date and an end date, but, you know, why was the memorials made with this material and not something else? Because, you know, that information is gone. We don't know. So I think that we need to memorialize it and keep that in place. So I agree. I need to be better in knowing that this committee is something, you know, we're really in its infancy at this point. We got to make sure that everything that we do now is known 25 years from now, that they can talk about it and say, okay, well, it was discussed on this date and this information was brought forward.
Oh, sure. Well, it's all good. I mean, it'll come up about donating for police, fire. You know, so I know that'll come up at some point.
No, absolutely. John?
Well, I think we're getting the cart before the horse a little bit here.
Mhm.
I like the enthusiasm. We're going to raise all this money. We have to come up, as you say, with what the parameters of the park are. We have to present it to the town council to make sure it's legal. You know, money's coming in from the outside, just can't go to a town project. It's not that easy.
Right.
And then finally, it has to go to the select board for their approval.
Right.
Because we are a committee of the select board. We're not anything in and of ourselves.
Right. No, I agree. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to have Ron Collins be part of the conversation, because he's he's walked this walk. He knows, you know, the ins and outs of how this progresses and how it goes forward. So, you know, I will endeavor to get him part of the next meeting, just so we can bounce ideas off of him, and he can tell us that we're, you know, headed off in a wrong tangent, or, you know, whatever the case may be. But having Ron part of the equation, I think, will answer a lot of questions. And again, he's already spoken a lot with town council about other projects within the town itself.
Well, we need to, in one of our first meetings when we have enough members, is to start setting the parameters of what's going to happen in this park. Now, doesn't mean it can't be changed later, but now, so we can get it underway and do it legally.
Yep. No, I agree. And I will start to put some items, put some ideas on paper, and I will email that to the group. And perhaps at the next meeting, we can start talking about some of the parameters in regards to the stones and the ideas of the park going forward. And, you know, one of the things, and I'll be the first to admit, you know, it wasn't until Brian started talking that it's something that's been in the back of my mind. We need to have a mission statement. We need to have a vision statement, you know, what our mission is, what our vision is. And I think that in and of itself will give some idea of the direction of the actual Memorial Day, Veterans Day Committee, as well as the 501c3 and its purpose. Russell.
I was just curious, and apologies if I missed it, but I was looking at the concept plan. Is there any plans to do anything for the Gulf War, like a Gulf War memorial?
Yes, that was one of the things that Keith Arnold had brought up at one of the meetings or at one of the functions that we had at, I think it was Memorial Day. When's the town going to do something for Gulf War veterans? When's the town going to do something for the Afghanistan war,
Right.
Iraq? I mean, those need to be addressed. And even to take it further, and it's one of the things that I brought up at the CPC meeting, not to leave anybody out of a conflict, but the Cold War was a big chunk of time for a lot of people in town. And again, they're not acknowledged. You know, unless someone tells you that they were in the military during the Cold War was just a time frame. It wasn't technically a conflict. So should we have a memorial for Cold War veterans?
President Bush gave us all a little certificate for that.
Yeah. Well, maybe the town of Orleans will give you some acknowledgement. But yeah, no, we have to get something out there. I mean, it's almost as if time stood still out there. I mean, the last thing that's even acknowledged is the Vietnam War. You know.
Right. Well, I'll give you some background on that if you'd like. I asked Paul Fulcher on many occasions about a Gulf War veterans thing, and he decided not to do anything with it.
Well, you know, and I don't mean to speak on his behalf because he can't speak, but I'm sure, you know, in one regard it was overwhelming, and in another regard, a lot of veterans, I don't want to say a lot of veterans, but some veterans don't really want to acknowledge that. So, you know, I personally, if I was in the Gulf War, I'd want people to know, and or at least show that I did my time.
I think it's a, you know, kind of if for me, for being in the military and knowing people that were over there, and you know, you don't want to leave that generation gap. You know, it was just is serious. If it's brings back memories that carry too much weight or gravity, it's up to that specific person to decide whether or not they want to visit this memorial. But I do think, you know, if we're going to memorialize our service members, people that fought for us, it would be appropriate to have. Yeah.
I think, and again, kind of speaking on Paul's behalf, I think a lot of what Paul Fulcher did was driven by what the American Legion Hall was requesting and or participating in. And I think what happened was, as time went on, younger veterans didn't really associate themselves with American Legion Post 308 or VFW Post in Brewster, because in their mind, the American Legion and the VFW were the old guys, and they didn't want to be part of the old guys. So they never really became part of American Legion Post 308. And if you don't have that group of people that's pushing the cause to have a Gulf War memorial, then it kind of disappears in the vapor. So I think that, and that's, I think, one reason why the town decided to create this Memorial Day Veterans Day Committee. It's comprised of prior veterans and their interests and the desire to make future generations understand what they went through and the sacrifices that were done. So it isn't just the American Legion Post 308 that's giving Paul Fulcher the information at the town of Orleans. It's collectively a group of people like you, Russ, and Keith, and Cecil, and John, that have had some involvement in the past to be able to, or to desire to have that memorialized going forward. So so I absolutely, getting back to the original, Gulf War, Iraq, Afghanistan, Cold War,
Right.
I think all those need to be identified and acknowledged. Okay. Again, I didn't mean to derail your train, Brian, but was there anything else you'd like to discuss with the 501c3?
No, thank you. It's good. We're off to a good start. I thank you for letting me to speak and update you. And I look forward to the next round.
Absolutely. And one of the things I think will help our organization, our group, as well as I'm sure, I think you and I have spoken briefly about it, was I'm going to try and get a Facebook page in place for the Veterans Memorial Day Committee, and with a link that would go back to the 501c3. And that way people can, if they're on Facebook, they can pull up, I can put the dates on there. It actually makes it easier for the town of Orleans if they show a link to that Facebook post that will show dates, and maybe we can have pictures in there and stuff like that. So I think it's beneficial if we start using technology to our advantage.
Absolutely.
And having that out there is huge. So, all right, if there's anything else.
Another thing.
Yep.
Can we ask the Department of Public Works to put up a new name on a sign?
For Veterans Memorial Park?
Yeah, since it was voted at town meeting.
Okay. Yeah, I could certainly request something. That would be Tom Daly.
Exact wording is in the warrant.
Okay. I can reach out to Tom Daly and find out if there's something that we can work on going forward.
Okay.
All right. And the last thing, what Cecil brought up before was the memorial on Monument Road. Apparently, and again, I'll go off on a tangent a little bit just to kind of give a little bit of a background. That's a Civil War monument that was put up. It's a zinc cast memorial. It was put up, as near as I can tell, in the mid to late 30s and 40s, when zinc casting was very popular. Unfortunately, during the course of time, be it the 60s or 70s, vandals ripped the musket from the soldier's hands. So he's holding, if you drive by there, he's got his two hands. I don't know if you can see me. He's got his two hands like that. He's actually holding the barrel of the musket. The musket's not there. It's gone, and it's been gone for many years. Over the years, somewhere along the line, the musket was retrieved, I believe, and was put back in place, but it was never put on there with the desire, and I'll say the desire, with the understanding that it wasn't going to last. The zinc casting and any kind of epoxy and such didn't last. And a historian in the town of Orleans noted that the butt of the gun should be pointing to the north. Apparently it was pointing to the west. So at some point in time, someone took the musket down to repair it, and whether it went back and was stolen or it never got replaced or it's in someone's closet, we're not quite sure. So what happened was, when the vandals in the 60s or 70s, when they ripped the musket off, they must have used a lot of force, because the base that the Civil War soldier is standing on is actually ripped the zinc is ripped across the back of its heels. And what's happened is over time, if you go by there sometime, take a look at it, he's leaning back. And someone from Parks or DPW, and I presume it may have been Paul Fulcher, took a piece of oak and put it underneath the cuff of his pant to keep him from toppling backwards. Unfortunately, that oak is starting to rot and he's continuing to lean back. So through Ron Collins and John Kelly asked Ron Collins to follow up on it. They had a company come out. I can't remember the gentleman's name. I think his name was Jeff. And Jeff and myself and Ron went out to the memorial. I forgot what day that was, Cecil. Thursday, I think. Friday, maybe.
Last Thursday. Yeah.
Last Thursday, yeah. We went out there. He brought a ladder. He went up there and took a. Now he works for a company that actually repairs zinc, and found out that it is it's a cast monument. There, not that it's unique to Orleans. That apparently they have those type of monuments. They have one in Lexington. They have them in a couple of different places. So they're common. They were stamped. They were cast, and they went to several towns. The art of zinc casting has gone by. However, it started to come back, and his company actually does repairs on it. So the game plan at this point is we are going to the town of Orleans, not us. The town of Orleans is going to create a wooden girdle around the base that's going to hold it in place with a wooden backing on it that's going to come up against his back to kind of keep him from toppling over. We want to avoid anybody being hurt if that monument were to fall. They're going to use a lull, and they're going to take the monument down, and they're going to take him up to wherever they're located. I think somewhere up around Foxborough, and they're going to try to repair the inside. They've got to go inside. They've got to put an epoxy inside. They're going to repair the base, and hopefully they'll get it back to that location. So that's basically what's going on with the Civil War soldier. One of the things that the gentleman asked me was, and I was kind of surprised. I would have thought that they had several to choose from, but he asked me if anybody in town had a picture of a Civil War musket so they could try to recreate the one that was already on it. So I don't know anybody that's got a Civil War musket. I'm sure we could probably find a picture online, but as I recall, and again, going back to John and Cecil, I don't know, did that musket have a bayonet attached to it while he stood there? Okay. See, those are things that I'm a little fuzzy on because I was kind of young at the time, but I wasn't sure how that musket was set up.
Mm-hmm.
So if anybody, I'll just put it out there. If anybody knows anybody that's got a Civil War musket, we could take a picture of it and I could send it up to the gentleman so they can try to recreate it. That would be great. So, well, unless anybody has anything else, I know we're a little bit over an hour, but I appreciate everyone's time in going forward and getting this worthwhile committee up and running in Veterans Memorial Park. A lot of good things in the future. I'm looking forward to it. Anybody have anything to add? Hearing none.
I just want to say thanks for including me, Kevin. It's been an honor to be part of this, not being a resident of Orleans, but being in the military. I just really appreciate the opportunity. So thank you.
Like I've had, like I mentioned to you, Russ, I think it's important that we get as much input as we can. And of course, the committee obviously can only be members of the town of Orleans, but I think it's important that we get the input. And I certainly don't want to be accused 15 years down the road saying, well, why did you do this? Why didn't you talk to someone in the Marine Corps? Why didn't you talk to somebody in the Navy? Or,
Well, as I say in the Marine Corps, there's 3 ways of doing something: the right way, the wrong way, and the Marine Corps way.
I think Russ can equate, and I know Keith is smiling as we speak.
I like it.
Hearing nothing more, I'll take. I can't even do a motion. We don't even have a quorum. I'm just going to say we'll adjourn the meeting at 5:40, and look forward to emails, keeping everybody in the loop. And I will send an email out in regards to potential updates on dates and times for future meetings, so we can get into a routine.
Great.
All right. Thank you.